Hello and welcome back. This is the Lesson 5 Challenge Assessment Supplemental. This is your favorite computer science teacher, Mr. Pitts. And if you're here, I can only assume that you have completed the Lesson 5 Challenge Assessment, turned it into your instructor, and now you just want to sort of check it out and make sure that you got everything right there. So let's review. Let's look at the board and check out the problem. So using MakeCode, you can create some code which will respond to the chat command build house, which will then build the four walls of a house, no roof or doors, windows, which you could then convert to buildings. So basically what we're thinking about is a square that is also tall. So it's like a box with no top or bottom on it. Use a brick block and have the structure to be the length of 5 and a height of 4. Now the nice thing about this, so we said that we're going to use the chat command build house. So let's come in and name this Pitts Lesson 5 Assessment. Always put your name on your paper, name on your code. So again, this is going to follow the command build house, although it's not really a house. So we're just kind of being generous there. And the neat thing about it is we do not need to use any variables. All right, so they've already given us the length and I assume the width, since it's going to be a square. So it's going to be 5 by 5 by 4 with no top or bottom. So if you can recall, back early in the last episode, it was activity 2. We basically created the code to build a square. And if you remember, basically that was turn on agent place on move. And then we ran a repeat where the agent sort of went around and then turned and then went around and then turned and then went around and then turned. All right. So we're going to do that exact thing now. There's a couple different ways you can do it depending on which repeat loop you want to use. Now, usually the rubric that I place out for my assignment is to use the for index loop. It's a little bit more challenging, although not much. It's basically the same thing as a repeat. But we're going to start with repeat, and then I will modify it to use for index loops if that's what your instructor is requiring. So let's break this down. So the easiest way to solve a problem is to break it down into manageable pieces and then solve those pieces one by one. So the first thing is, if we're going to make a square, all right, then we need to make one side of the square. So that's the first manageable chunk. So let's try that first. Chat command build house. Anytime I'm building what I like and I have the full array of blocks to use, I always like to go ahead and give the agent in the chat command, even better in the repeat, what type of block he wants to be using. So they want us to use brick block. We can do that, and then we can give him the max for that is 64. Then what we're going to do is turn on place on move. Again, you don't have to do it this way. I'll show you another way we can actually get this done. But if we're going to copy the activity 2 code, agent place on move, then what we're going to do is the agent is going to move forward by 4. And we know that's 4 because he's going to do sides of 5. And so what we want it to do is each side is do a side of 4 and then do a turn left. And then when he starts on the next side, he will place that 5th block. So that's why we do move forward by 4. So this code here should do one side of our square, of our bottom layer. So let's try that out. And we don't have to give him any inventory because we do it in the code. Aha, and we got an issue here. So he went forward 1, 2, 3, 4, just like expected, but then turn left. So it looks like what I actually want to do for this code is have him turn right. Okay, let's try that again. Now he's in position. So if we do the same thing again, and do the same thing again, we get essentially the 3 walls of our square. Now, if we tried it a 4th time, then he would go 1, 2, 3, and then try to step here but not be able to. Therein is an issue. So what we did in the activity 2 was we did a repeat. So instead of having to use the chat command 3 times, we'll do the repeat 3 times. And then after that, what we did was we did a move forward by 3. And then we did a move right. But I'm going to change that to move up by 1. So this does 3 sides of the square. And then this does that shorter 4th side to account for the first block already being there. So let's try that out. And another thing to note is that I'm giving him 64 blocks every time we go through this repeat. So we're not going to run out of blocks. Okay. Now, our problem here is that, well, the good news is we got the square. So this is the bottom layer. And basically each side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 by 5, just like the problem asks us to. What we want to do is we want to do this same thing 4 times high. However, if I go ahead and run this code again, so repeat the code for the layer, he can't run it because he was in a weird starting place. All right. So what we want to do, hold on, buddy. So what we want to do is pay attention to where he is when he ends, and then move him in position to start the second layer. So, where would he want to be? Where was he when he started the first layer? Well, he was on this block facing this direction. So to fix that, all we need to do is an agent move forward by 1, and then an agent turn right at the end of that. And then we can repeat the process. However, we have agent place on move on. So what's going to happen here is if he moves, he's going to place a block here, which is going to be in the way the next time we come back around. So we want to make sure before we do the move to get him back in place is that we turn that off. That way he's not moving blocks. And then we're actually just moving the agent, right? So let's reset that and let's try that. By the way, always recommend doing your code in small pieces and then make sure that small piece works and then you add something else. And then you make sure that works and then you add something else. That way you don't try a whole big glob of code and then find out it doesn't work. So small piece at a time. And we actually do talk about something called modularity in a future lesson. So, okay. So here we are. He's back in the same starting point, back at the same orientation. So he's facing the same way. So if I were to repeat build house again, then I would get another layer right here on top, and then he would move up again. So really what that means is that at this point we feel comfortable doing a repeat. So now how many times are we going to repeat? Simple. We're going to repeat that 4 layers, right? Because that's what the problem asked for. So we take the code for 1 layer plus the code to get him in the right place. And then we're going to repeat that 4 times. So what that's going to do is build a layer and then get him in the right place to build another layer. Build a layer, put him in the right place to build another layer. And we're going to do that 4 times over. Perfect. Now we have the 5 by 5 box with 4 layers, which is exactly what the problem had asked for. So now what do we want to do? Let's first and foremost, let's take a look at the code real quick. And then let's modify this code so that we can use the for index loop instead of the repeat loop. Now, if you see a chunk of code that's grayed out like this, that's because you cannot have two chat commands with the same name. So I'm going to name this build house 2. Matter of fact, let's make that more accurate. Let's make this the for build house. Here we go. So if you recall, when we bring out our for index loop, it's basically the same as a repeat loop with a couple of added pieces of functionality. But it's going to repeat, so this is the same as repeat 5 because we start counting at 0. So we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is actually 5 iterations through the loop. So if we want to do repeat 3, all we need to do is change our for index from 0 to 2. So 0, 1, and 2. Just like that. Just like that. And so we've replaced that repeat with a for index. Now same thing, to change this repeat 4, what we would do is we would take a for index, go from 0 to 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's 4 iterations through. And then basically what we do is we put everything inside of that, get rid of our repeat, and then double check our code. So we have our outer loop that represents the layers, 4 layers, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then this repeat, this for index, represents the 3 sides of the square, 0, 1, and 2. Then this is the 4th side of the square, the forward and then move up. And then this is the code to get the agent into the right place to start the next layer. So let's try out for build house. And we should get the exact same structure. And we have our structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 tall. So there we go. Whether we want to use the repeat loop or whether we want to use the for index loop, either way, here's the code for that. Now let's take it one step further. And let's say that we wanted to modify this code for build house to take variables so that we could tell it how big the square would be and how tall the tower would be. I'm going to save my code. And then we're going to take that over to the creative world, where we're going to expand this and test this out and take this to the max. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. All right, beautiful. Back in our flat coding world. As you can see, I already built one of those crazy big towers. So let's load that code and see how to do that. There it is, lesson 5 assessment. So we've already loaded that in. Again, I'm going to use the for build house. What we need to know, number 1, is how to change our code to be able to take length and height. So it'll be a square tower, and length will be the length of the sides, and height will be the height of the tower. So what we basically want to do is add arguments to both of our chat commands. So we'll rename num1 to length, and we'll rename num2 to height. So essentially the way this will work is we'll type in build house and then 2 numbers. The first number will be how big the square is. The second number will be how tall it is. So remember, our repeat 4 from the code was basically just the height, right? So if all of this code inside of here makes the square, then this is just the number of squares. So that's real easy. So we just drag over our height variable, and there we go. Now, inside of the square, remember this repeat 3 times was for the 3 sides of the square. But our move forward was the length of the square, which was 5, minus 1, minus the corner. So this was length minus 1. So what we want to do is grab our math, grab our minus, make that minus 1, and then make that length minus 1. So remember, that's going to be whatever we want our length to be. So if it's 5, it will go forward by 4. So 5 minus 1 is 4. And leave that corner for the next run through. Okay? Here's the tricky part. The last side will have the 2 corners. So the one from the beginning and the one already at the end. So remember, this 3 was when the length was 5. So technically, it's length minus 2 is what we want to do for that last side. And that should allow us to use variables to create the square tower. All right, let's test out build house. There's a couple other modifications we can make to it. Let me change the block to, I don't know. Let's go, what do you think? Emerald. Emerald block. Make an emerald tower here. There we go. Okay. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to, make one crazy big like I have over here in the background. Something else I always like to do in the creative world is to have a teleport to a teleport agent. That way I can just move the agent around. So make it here. So when I type in here, he'll come to me. There we go. So agent comes to me. Now a couple of things I want to make sure. He is turning in this code to the right. So I want to make sure that the agent has plenty of room to his right to make the tower. So let's do that. Build house. And we'll make it somewhat small. So let's go 7 and 7. So 7 long. 7 long. And 7 tall. Which is exactly what we told him. 7 and 7. Okay, so let's fix that for index loop. I'm going to drag the agent back down here. And let's look at that code. So remember, the for index from 0 to 3 was to do a repeat 4. And that's because it was the height of 4. So we're going to make these length and height also. And again, this was just the height. So, however, if we do for index 0 to height, and let's say we type in height 3, what that's going to do is it's going to count 0 and we get a layer, 1 we get a layer, 2 we get a layer, and 3 we get a layer. So if we type in 3, we'll get 4 layers, which we don't want. I mean, you might know that's how the code works, and then you could just type in the right number, but that is far less clean than just having height minus 1, and then that way, whenever you type in for height, that's the height that you'll get. Same thing here, 4 index from 0 to 2. Remember, those were the 3 sides. But what we needed to change was this here, move forward by. And again, it's also going to be length minus 1. Right? That hasn't changed. Because we're moving the length minus that one corner, which is going to be placed when we do the next side. Again, move forward by 3, which is actually going to be length minus 2, because we're taking care of both corners on that one, because the first corner is already placed. And so we're going to do length minus 1 minus the initial block that was already placed. And that's it. And that should be a 4 build house. What I'm going to do now is change this to a different block. Let's use, let's make a blue ice tower. What do you think? Sounds very cool. Let's do that. 4 build house. And then we'll make this one smaller. I think it should work with a length of 3. Get out of here. All right. Should work with a length of 3. So let's do that. Let's do 4 build house, 3 and 7. Let's see what we get. Question I get a lot is there a way to speed up the agent? The answer is I do not think so. At least not one that I'm aware of. If you know of one or know of a secret to get the agent to move faster, please do so. However, when moving and placing, it seems to be that speed. So for example, when I built this tower using the same code that I just used for build house, I had to let it go basically for an entire class period. I think it was maybe 35 or 40 minutes over a couple different class periods. But that goes up past render distance, so it's actually taller than it looks. Anyway, so that is how you would modify the code to be able to accept variables. And that way you can have a tower built as tall or as high as you want. And then if you really wanted to, you could come back in, knock out a door, you know, put some lighting in here, put a little sign, and maybe put a nice message on that sign like that. And then what I like to do is take the glow ink and make it pop. So again, yes, thanks for watching. This has been the Lesson 5 Assessment Supplemental. You are awesome. And this has been your favorite computer science teacher, Mr. Pitts. So there you go. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll be happy to get to them as soon as I can. Hope you have a great, wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next episode for Lesson 6. Oh, yeah. See ya.